Hey there, my name is Mackenzie, and if you're new here, welcome to my little corner of the internet. If you're returning, welcome back. Today's journal with me is another art journal episode focusing on autumn aesthetics. As I said in the previous episode, I had quite a bit of materials left over after finishing the first autumn spread and still felt creatively energized, so I made a second autumn spread with those leftover supplies to try to make as much use of them as I could during this journaling session. I knew I wanted to use this blue scrap paper somehow, as I love the idea of the oranges and blue together, but the paper is somewhat boring, so I grabbed all of my markers and made my own little autumn pattern on it. I wanted to make sure the colors would blend well with the other elements of the spread, so I swatched all of my markers and compared them to the other materials to select the markers that matched the best. I then got to drawing out the pattern, which is made up of pumpkins and leaves. I started out by drawing the shapes in random order, then went back in and used the same colors to outline them. It looked fine like that, but I decided to bring my ballpoint gel pen in and outline again in black, adding the little details like the stems of the pumpkins and the leaf veins. This whole process took me like 20 to 30 minutes to complete, if not more, but it was well worth the time spent by the end. Once the pattern was done and I was happy with it, I got back to building the spread, starting with the main large picture I uncreatively slapped on in full on the left side. If you watched the first autumn spread video, you'll know why I'm bringing that up, but don't worry, I get more creative with the pattern I just made, tearing it up so it's rounded on the left side. This was somewhat emotionally painful to do, but I was operating on faith alone that this might be worth it in the end. At the time of filming this, it was mid-October, but by the time this goes up, it'll be November, and I'm sure a lot of the wonder and beauty of autumn will be nearing its end. That's the sad thing about autumn specifically, is that it's arguably the prettiest and most comfortable season in terms of weather here in Canada, but it lasts the least amount of time. I always feel like just as I'm starting to really enjoy it, it's just gone. The leaves don't stay pretty colors for long before they're brown and rotting on the sidewalks. The weather doesn't stay comfortably cool for long before it gets frigid and I don't want to leave the house. And the rainy, cloudy weather that often accompanies this season gives me migraines and depresses me. Give me more sunny, comfortably cool days with trees full of leaves and bright oranges and yellows and reds for more than like 2 days a year. Is that too much to ask? I'm curious. When it comes to autumn in your country, do you find that it all lasts longer? I'm interested in knowing if it's just a Canada thing, given how quickly it gets cold here. Autumn just doesn't have much of a chance, maybe. I should clarify I'm in Ontario, so other parts of Canada could be different, but I don't think by much. And as for spooky season, I did grow up going trick-or-treating every year until I was 11, when my mom told me I couldn't go anymore because I was too tall and would be mistaken for a teenager. My two brothers, who are the same age as me, got to continue to go for a few more years as they were much shorter than me and passed this undisclosed height requirement. The good thing was we combined all the candy, and after my parents went through it to make sure there wasn't anything weird in there or anything they knew we really didn't like, it was then split equally, so I was never left out. That said, Halloween wasn't something we celebrated much outside of that, and I honestly feel like Halloween is more of a bigger deal now than it ever was when I was a kid. Like, my classmates were excited for the trick-or-treating and getting candy for free part, but I don't remember the dressing up part to be as much of an excitement for a lot of the kids around me, and there wasn't a lot of creativity with costumes. It was just like whatever was available at Zellers or Party City that year. Some people did go all out and decorate their places a lot and make insane haunted houses in their garage, but like that was usually the one oddball on the block, and otherwise most didn't do much more than maybe some cheap spider webs and a plastic trick-or-treat sign on their porch. Nowadays, it's like enjoying spooky season has become an entire personality of so many that it's a much bigger thing when the season rolls around. Maybe I'm just remembering wrong and it always was a big deal amongst some adults and I just wasn't as aware, but I feel like my generation grew up and just collectively decided to celebrate the shit out of Halloween to an extent previously unseen. It's not a bad thing by any means, just something I've noticed in recent years. Back to the spread. Some of you who have watched my other journal videos will recognize this tag as it's made appearances in several of them. I'm always trying to find a spread that it fits in with and never can. It's the weird color of the body of the tag that managed to clash with the color palette of other spreads up until now, but this time it worked a bit better, so I took the opportunity to use it. I made a little makeshift pocket thing to put it into and then got to decorating the tag with bits of scrap paper, this cute quote picture, and some of the leftover pattern I made. I also had one more leaf that was decent enough to use for a spread, and the color of it blended well with the light oranges and yellows within the pattern I made, so I stuck that on there as well. I wasn't sure about this, but I got an idea to cut out some of the remaining pattern elements and poke holes into them so that they could hang off the tag string like little charms. But I cut too close to the designs to make that work. I didn't even think to just take some of that plain blue paper and glue them onto there so that then I would have room to hole punch, but I'll be saving the idea in my brain for another time. I instead just glued them onto the pocket like this and decided that was good enough. Because of the large pumpkin pattern taking up like 40% of the page, I decided to only use this orange leaf washi for this spread so as to not create too many overlapping patterns that overwhelm the eyes and distract from the pumpkin pattern I made, which is supposed to be the focal point. While unintentional, a lot of the images I had left over had more of a focus on pumpkins than other aspects of autumn like the previous spread, so I started building off of that with the little stamp-like ballpoint pen doodles I did on this one. I drew mostly pumpkins around the spread, but I also added a few small simple mushrooms for a little more variety. After I completed the spread and started cleaning up, I decided on a whim to color the tops of these 3 mushrooms with a similar blue color to the pumpkin paper and immediately regretted it. So I'm happy that the version of this spread without that bad choice has been memorialized in this video. I also just gotta say, my pumpkin drawing game is high tier. Like, I love the way these look with their little scraggly rough lines and wiggly swirly vines. Some of my best doodle work for sure. And that completes the second autumn art journal spread. This one is definitely more playful and fun, straying a little from the traditional autumn color palettes with the inclusion of this pretty blue shade, but not enough that it feels out of place. I loved the pumpkin leaf pattern I made so much that I almost wish I could make it into fabric or something, even though I don't know what I'd make it into if I did. Let me know in the comments what you'd use this pumpkin pattern for. If you've watched the previous autumn spread, which one do you like more? I love them both, but I think I'm leaning more towards this one. There's just something about that combo of blue and orange that really gets me here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next art journal video in December.